Welcome in to Bears Weekly, powered by IGS Energy, a Chicago Bears network production. Bears Weekly is brought to you by Advocate Healthcare, Athletico Physical Therapy, CDW, Connie's Pizza, IGS Energy, and Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Jeff Joniak, a.k.a. the Mayor of Bearsville, and his sidekick, Tom the Surfmaster Thayer.
All right. The aftermath of a win over the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field yesterday moved the Bears into 2025 planning. So tonight on Bears Weekly, we take a look back at the 5-12 season, what transpired, where the franchise is heading, and as it prepares for 2025. Good to be back with you on this Monday night on Bears Weekly with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak. Joining us, as we will throughout the offseason, will be former Bears quarterback Jim Miller from SiriusXM Moving the Chains. And in the ESPN studio, spinning the dials tonight, Justin Pottinger. And thanks to our producers, Dan Brilli, Jordan Tredup from the Bears. And the executive producer of the Bears Radio Network is Eric Ostrowski. Coming up, we'll have the end-of-season news conference with interim head coach Thomas Brown, a portion of that, and quarterback Caleb Williams reflecting on his rookie season. On Tuesday, 10 a.m. news conference with general manager Ryan Poles with his end-of-season review. End of season with a win, Tom, for the first time. I didn't realize this. First time since the 2019 season.
Yeah, it's been a while. Nevertheless, it kind of was fun walking out of Lambeau Field because there's been so many disappointing walks from the press box down to the team bus, which is a long walk. I know it wasn't a cure-all, but it sure sent 2025 off to a much better start than what the finish could have been if it disappointingly would have led to another loss.
And another expert, Jim Miller, now joining us. First win at Lambeau since 2015, Thanksgiving Day. It's a long time that we were all talking about it. Caleb Williams was 14 years old the last time the Bears won at Lambeau.
Really crazy. And, you give the guys a lot of credit. I thought they played hard, all the way to the end. He had the unfortunate fumble, but they overcame that as well and able to knock in the game winner. But it just, to really end a season against your rival when you just have a bad taste in your mouth. So it really kind of just relieves a little bit of that. And I think that, to end on a high note. And the guys had some professional pride. So you give them a lot of credit with the effort and getting a win on the road when it really didn't matter. So glad they didn't check it in. Yeah,
I keep focusing on this word resolve. They had the resolve. That they could have just folded up after that fumble again, not another scenario where you're not going to be able to get the job done in the fourth quarter. But that drive, that throw to DJ Moore by Caleb was outstanding. And so you conquered adversity after the fumble, and you just kind of wipe out all that streak stuff. That's done now. Forget about it. Now, fresh, clean slate, Tommy.
Well, the thing about it is it's a divisional opponent at home, and I think it's a really good learning experience for every one of these young guys that are going to be here for a while. You know what it's like in Minnesota, you know what it's like in Detroit, and now you know what it's like in Lambeau Field. So now mentally and physically, you know what to prepare for when you're getting ready to play those games in the future. You're going to play in a lot of hostile environments, but there's nothing like divisional opponents, and hopefully – that puts a little bit of spark in Soldier Field, so the next time the divisional opponents come back there to play, they expect the Bears to win.
45 wins in the division, Jim. Crazy number.
Hey,
Detroit went 6-0, Minnesota 4-2, and Green Bay and the Bears both 1-5. So they're a block field goal away. The Packers were going 0-6 in the division. Tim, Tom and Jim. I was calling you. I mixed your.
Right.
I mixed you guys.
Right.
Tim is my new. You guys. That's the alter ego of Jim Miller and Tom Thayer is Tim.
Well, I agree with what Tom said about learning your opponents on the road. Yes, but these are all playoff teams, right? These are playoff teams, so you know what you're looking at in division. What Green Bay has done, what Minnesota has done with Darnold, and obviously Detroit. I mean, Detroit, what they did with Minnesota yesterday to take, home field advantage, it's looking right at you in division of what you've got to do and what you're going to be competing against and what hill that you need to climb to achieve this.
Yeah. And it's going to be an interesting exercise because as these teams continue to build their resume in terms of success, there's a financial component that will come back to haunt all that greatness, right? Like in Detroit or at some point the salary cap also screams a little bit. So, you just got to keep pounding that rock, and hopefully that you can get into that conversation as a premier team in the division as well. But it's not going to be simple.
No, that's the business side of it. That's for other people to figure out. To me, is when I look at the upcoming schedule already, and we don't know when they're going to happen, but we know who they're going to be. And so as a player, whether you're a rookie or you're a guy that's been around for 6 or 7 years, and then you start thinking about where and when you're playing these different opponents, I think it kind of sets a little, the ball is moving. You're not going to the Hall of Fame game. You don't know if you're going to play internationally yet. You're just getting ready for 9 away games and 8 home games. And you want to start off with a spark at home and let that ignite something big. But maybe the spark started yesterday at Lambeau.
Cleveland, Dallas, Giants, Pittsburgh, and New Orleans coming to Chicago. Baltimore, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, Washington, Vegas, and San Francisco are the road trips. Tommy,
that's some tough road trips, man. When you look at where Washington's going, how hostile the environment is in Philly, I think when you think of Las Vegas, it's going to be 70% Bears fans. So put that one in the home column. But again, I do think when the conversation amongst all these guys, whether they're traveling on the plane home last night or they get together within the next couple weeks, it's, kind of hard not to think about now that you're on to next year.
Yeah, it's funny, Jeff, because when Tom started, he said, well, I don't look at the financial things. And when I got done with football, I did not look at the offseason the way I do now. Mm-hmm. And there is so much going on in the offseason with financials, with the draft, which free agency. I mean, we can go on and on of all the things that are going on, but money is a big part of it and how much you have to spend. And what's going on in the NFC North, we know the Lions have committed to Jared Goff. All right, the Packers have committed to Jordan Love. There are now talks that the Minnesota Vikings may be committed to Sam Darnold. Ooh. And they're going to commit a lot of dollars. The Bears have an opportunity here because they've got the rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams where they can surround him and build around him with a lot of things, like how Seattle did with Russell Wilson. We can go through numerous examples, but the Bears could be the one unique team in the North that could be financially structured differently than those other clubs, depending on what Minnesota does this offseason.
And that's what I was driving at a little bit, that you got to take advantage of that.
Right. Oh, of course. You have to take advantage of it. When you have two guys like Caleb and Rome, and what you can put around them. But the question too, I don't even know when the Bears are drafting. Do we
10.
know that? 10. Okay.
Yeah, 10.
So now you're looking at the 10th pick in the draft. But when you have a couple of assets that you just recently brought aboard that aren't just, aren't killing your salary cap, you can really, to make some significant strides within the next couple years within the draft.
And, of course, this is the day when news breaks on many fronts in the coaching universe. And so right now, to my knowledge, Jim, 5 openings. And NFL Network and ESPN's Adam Schefter putting forth a bunch of names that the Bears are asking to interview, permission. So these are all attributed to those guys. Of course, the Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Anthony Weaver. Thomas Brown's going to get an interview. There's a request, according to NFL Network, that Mike McCarthy, the Dallas head coach, before he has an exclusive negotiating window with Dallas, that expires, I believe, on January 14th. The name Drew Petzing, the Arizona offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, Baltimore offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, according to Adam Schefter, the Pittsburgh offensive coordinator, and the St. Rita alum, Northwestern alum, Mike Kafka, according to NFL Network, the Giants offensive. So, again, they said it was going to be a broad scope view of how they're going to look at this, and so a lot of names there to work through. And we'll learn more tomorrow, potentially, from Ryan Poles about some of this.
Yeah, there's a lot of names there, but that'll get cut down pretty quickly. A lot of that stuff, the interviews, a lot of those are Zoom calls where they can narrow in on, say, their top 4 candidates is what it'll be. And Pat and I had a good discussion about that, and Pat typically the guys that he has prepped for interviews, that's typically how they'll do it. A lot of zoom-ins when you hear that volume of names.
Well, tell everybody who Pat is.
Oh, Pat Kerwin, the former GM of the Jets, excuse me.
Your partner on Sirius XM NFL Radio. All right, when we come back, we're going to hear part of the news conference from Thomas Brown, the Bears interim head coach, as we continue on breaking down 2024 and looking ahead to 2025 here on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network. This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy with Tom Thayer, Jeff Joniak, and Jim Miller from Sirius XM NFL Radio as we begin to break down the season and look ahead a little bit here. But first, I'd like to play some of the 15-minute news conference that Thomas Brown conducted up here at Hallis Hall. So broke off about 10 minutes of it. We'll sit back and listen in right here to Thomas Brown.
Some stuff I said yesterday, I was excited for that locker room, the feeling of winning again, the feeling of a couple firsts, beating the Packers in a while, first win of the year. But one that kind of just made a point of emphasis of allowing those guys to finish the right way, right? So we talked about the night before in the team meeting about a couple of things that, kill success, are enemies of success, which ease is one of them, or the desire for things to be easy. So difficult game, kind of endured some difficult moments throughout this year. So it's good to be able to see those guys persevere and come through and, capitalize on some opportunities. Even at the end of it, just how it ended, just to still believe the same mentality. And so excited for the group, obviously excited for organization as well. And now having an opportunity to meet with those guys one-on-one for the most part throughout the day. Haven't obviously gotten through the whole roster yet, but about maybe a third of the way through, maybe less than that. But just to be able to give those guys feedback on what I felt about the season for them individually, but also advice moving forward, regardless of how it shapes out, just for them, their development, their growth in the game of football. But what I care probably the most about is just their development and growth in life. Questions?
Ryan said yesterday that you're going to interview for the job. Do you know what day you're going to do that?
I do not yet, no.
We want to stress to him and Kevin, George, anything about what you've done in the last 5 weeks and why you'd be the best candidate for the job?
Yeah, well, I think having a chance to lay out my whole vision, the plan I have for this football team moving forward is going to be part of it. But I think them having a chance to see me in the building is something that, to me, should be more impressive than everything else. The situation I kind of had a chance to take over, having 3 different jobs in the same season, which I'm not sure that's happened before in the history of football. They may have been. I might be being dramatic, but you guys can Google that and look at it, which I haven't heard of it. But I think just the approach that I've had every single day in the building, the mentality I brought to the group, and I understand the results that we're all hunting up. I understand the expectation as far as everybody assumes stuff gets changed because you snap your fingers. That is not how change happens. Change happens over time. I think oftentimes when you're making radical changes, things get worse before they get better. But I think just being able to have him be in my meetings, see how I conduct myself in a team meeting, see myself at practice with as far as how I am with the group, should be more beneficial than anything else. But it's going to be just more about myself, my personality, but also the plan for this organization.
Thomas, how challenging was the situation you walked into for you personally, knowing it was not something that you had set up all the pieces in place with staff and the way things had gone, and you inherited a team that was, I can't remember the exact record at the time, maybe 4-7 or something, a team that was really in bad shape.
Yeah, so it was challenging, but I learned a lot more about myself this year, and I've probably grown more as a coach this year than the last maybe 2-3 years combined, just because of having to wear 3 different hats in the same building, and also have to adjust and adapt on the fly, which is a desired trait you should have or want to have to be in this position, because the game is ever evolving, ever changing, and it's never consistent as far as what may happen from day to day. But also having a chance to learn on the fly, adapt on the fly, and make adjustments on the fly when it comes to how you communicate with players. They also being able to offer myself in a different light. And you go from being in the back of the quarterback room as a pass game coordinator to being the coordinator to being the head coach. Gives you a different perspective as far as how the group views you, but also give a glimpse of what it looks like when you have an opportunity to do it the right way from the beginning. So difficult, 1,000%, probably more so than people are willing to admit, and will ever put themselves in a spot to have to actually ever do. But difficult is a part of life, and difficult to me is irrelevant.
Thomas, if you got a second year with Caleb, how different would the offense look?
A lot different. I think from one standpoint of he's been through a season already won. So there's obviously some growing pains he's already worked through, but just from a foundational standpoint as far as the work in the offseason, I think if you want to be a great team, want to be a great quarterback, want to be a great player in general, it's built in the offseason, long before the cameras are on you, but long before you play a football game. So the foundational piece is going to be different. Obviously understanding more about him and how he learns and how to communicate with him, but also what he needs to be at his best will be different because I have a chance to address that and approach that from day one. But also just overall his growth and development as far as a player will grow. So it would naturally be better because of that too.
Thomas, whether you're the coach next year or somebody else's, what will your message be to Ryan and Kevin when it comes to addressing what this organization needs or this locker room needs that you feel, that you've seen from the inside to turn the corner and actually become a winning team?
Yes, I've already begun that dialogue starting 5 weeks ago when I just first took over the interim head coach role as far as my thoughts of the roster, the personality of the guys in the locker room, the ability of the players, but also just the intangibles we need to have as far as a collective. Us being on the same page for sure is going to be a big part of that, like the collaborative effort to move into kind of a one-focused mentality. But I've challenged every guy in a locker room to have a different perspective, have a different mentality. And ultimately, the best teams are player-led. So the more they control the locker room, of course, the head coach is important. Coordinators is important. The scheme is important. But in between those lines, players play. So have an opportunity for them to address issues in the offseason to command and to get the respect they need from a locker room standpoint is going to be important. So we've already had those dialogues to some degree, but I'll go in deeper detail in my interview.
So what do you feel is missing?
It's not really a short answer to that question. So I don't have the time to go through everything I think is kind of missing. But I think from the standpoint of the culture being about the people, the foundational pieces that start first in the offseason, but the mentality of expecting and the belief to win and approaching that way every single day as far as how you go about your business, that's one thing that's missing.
Thompson, do you think that was the disconnect, is that everybody wasn't on the same page? That's what led to?
I can't speak to that because I wasn't here before and I wasn't here at the beginning when the foundation was set. I just speak to my perspective of being around winning organizations and the ones that haven't been. That is one missing piece, just not being aligned as far as everyone moving in the same direction. But I also think shared accountability throughout the building, right? So we are all here because of the ball, and so we all get judged because of how the ball is, but we all in the building have to operate with the mentality of my job is important. I got to be excellent every single day for this whole thing to function the right way. So from how you deal with everybody in the cafeteria to the janitorial service, everybody has to have a mentality of winning and being excellent and be held to that same standard.
As you reflect, what's your perspective on why this team wasn't able to activate the parachute during that 10-game losing streak?
Again, I think it's all a foundational issue from the very beginning of the mentality you have and expecting to win, and also not shying away from the adverse moments and the understanding of every guy in that locker room, every guy on that field, and every single phase, expecting and being demanding and held accountable to be at his best. Because most games in this league, boil down to one-score games, so that's not like it's a big shock or surprise. You'd rather just have multiple blowouts in back-to-back games. So that's kind of an understanding, but just the mentality of how not to fall apart in the critical moments, it's got to be taught from the very beginning.
Caleb talked about, and he said about he wants a coach that's going to challenge him. He's talked specifically about what it's been like for you when you were promoted to head coach. How do you get through to him the most? What have you learned about just like what buttons he needs to have pushed to get the most out of him?
To me, it's honesty. I think one of the difficult parts about the quarterback position that I found is people baby the quarterback too much. And they worry more about being liked by the quarterback than telling what he needs to hear. It is by far and away the most difficult position to play. We all know that. But to whom much is given, much is required. And so I think one of the things we connected on at the beginning was I was honest from the get-go about what I wanted to bring to the table, but also what issues I saw in him. But my overall goal being about making him the best he can be. That is my goal in that role, in the roles moving forward. So I think it starts with that first. I think the understanding of how every player learns and how you can have to do a really good job of being innovative and creative as far as how you approach that is always important, particularly that position. But I think just honesty, just being open, honest from a communication standpoint, taking feedback, but also you're a coach for a reason, so coach him. And don't pass the buck, don't overlook issues because it won't just go away by itself. And I think the more time it goes by, of course, he'll grow and mature more, which is normal for any player, not just him. But I think the understanding of how to teach guys, not expecting guys to come in from day one and just have all the answers. Like, that's not realistic, and it shouldn't be the expectation. So, like I said before, from the very beginning, from a foundational standpoint, putting those things in place. I think collaboration piece is something you kind of get to as from a down the road as far as we work together. But the beginning, a little different than any other position. You coach them. You hold them accountable. And you show those guys how to be better.
So that's a portion of Thomas Brown today. Very frank conversation. That's been the consistent theme from Thomas, and there's a lot there that I appreciate coming from that head coach and during that process. Jim, Tom's having some technical problems, so we're going to stick with you, Jim. What's your takeaway when you hear that? Especially the things that he identified as something, and that is like, okay, the belief that you're going to go in every week and win a game, and he felt that was not something that the team felt coming into, when he was taking over. So that's a big thing. That's a big thing.
Well, yeah, and he touched on it, and it put him in a difficult spot because, like he said, he's wearing three different hats. At one point he's the passing game coordinator. All of a sudden he's thrust into these different roles as the play caller and then the interim head coach. That even more is put on his plate. So it's tough. I think he said a lot of good things there, and it may be why the Bears until this year hadn't let go a coach early. Look at the coaches who have been fired this year. Was there any positive change? Whether it was Robert Saleh or what happened with Dennis Allen or the situation with Matt Eberflus. If anything, it compounded the issues because then you lost play callers on both sides of the ball. You had already fired Shane Waldron, and then once you relieved Matt Eberflus, really their top play caller for the defense was gone. So you affected both sides of the ball. So very rarely, like what Thomas Brown was talking about, does radical change work? So maybe it's a caution to the wind that people think about, just fire the coach and everything will get better midseason, and it really doesn't. So now they've cleared the deck and where it goes, and Thomas Brown will get his bite at the apple for an interview, and I'm sure he has good perspective of insights of where he's been previously to what he's experienced as a Chicago Bear coach and where he feels that they need to go.
All right, that's Jim Miller. Tom will rejoin us on the other side. We'll take a break here. Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network. This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. Jeff and Tom and Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio. Tom's reconnected. Tom, listening into Thomas Brown today, what's your takeaway?
Well, I like Thomas Brown. I like the way he approaches the podium. I like his serious approach and his ability to communicate with the press and the players. And one thing you think about every coach they're going to interview, the things they're going to ask every coach that comes in the building, they already know those things about Thomas Brown. They're questions they're not necessarily going to have to ask him because they've been around him for that long, that period of time. The one thing that they need to hear from Thomas Brown is, what is your offensive philosophical beliefs? What are you going to do? What are you going to change about the offense? What are you going to install? And how can you make Caleb that, that decade star, that franchise quarterback, whatever you want to call him, in the high regards? That's what you need to learn from Thomas Brown, because I do think all the details of what they need out of a head coach, they already know about him. But what is your offense going to include to help Caleb and the entire offense be the guy that you want him to be?
And Jim, the other big component of this also is who's going to be on your staff. All these guys that come in, because that's as important as anything.
Yeah, it really is going to be key. No matter who they hire as a head coach, who is going to be the key guy to bring along Caleb Williams? And it's hard to believe that we now are a year past that we thought that this was going to be solved when you draft him and you try to court and work that out with Shane Waldron. But here's where they are. So whatever coach is, who they hire as the head coach, the offensive coordinator is going to be crucial for Caleb's development. I don't want to say this was a completely wasted year for Caleb, because it wasn't. He saw a lot of looks defensively. He did learn a lot of things. He worked with people, sees the professional level, how the preparation it takes. All those things are bonuses, but how this new head coach and where this offense is going to go and what vision they have for it is going to be crucial for his development.
Yeah, some of the things he accomplished. Franchise rookie records, obviously, a ton of them. Completions, passing yards, touchdowns. Yep. Total yards, number one in franchise history with 4,000 when you add in the run game. The fourth fewest interceptions by a Bears quarterback, minimum 10 starts in franchise history. But, Tom, for me, the biggest one of all, for all that math's great, is he started all 17 games, and he finished all 17 games other than kneel downs, or I think one time Tyson came in for a couple of plays here, but that's it. I mean, he made it, and that hadn't happened since 2009.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy because, unfortunately, he took a lot of sacks. But when you take a lot of sacks, you also take a lot of hits that aren't counted as sacks. So I think Caleb really showed a lot of resiliency to his teammates that, look, you may not be 100% week in and week out, but if you can play, come and contribute to every way possible. And, he ran when it was necessary. But I think life behind the line of scrimmage is what you really want to see out of a quarterback. You don't want the threat of getting hurt because you're running more than you're throwing the ball. And, he was successful when he threw the ball, and I expect that, his arrow is pointed up. And the thing about it is the records and the good things you talked about him doing, our expectations are even greater for the future than just saying, oh, he's a good quarterback. No. He's a really good quarterback that has a chance to be a great quarterback.
Jim, I don't know. The number seems high. So, and I know the Bears threw the ball more than they ran it this year, different than a year ago or the year before. But 562 pass attempts, most in a single season in Bears history. I didn't think that would happen this year. I thought, but hey, when you got a quarterback who's drafted number one overall, I think you get used to it, right? You're going to throw the football.
Well, yeah, I don't think that was the game plan. I really don't. I think they found themselves behind in some games and then tried to get in track meets. But there's a lot to like you said, Jeff, about Caleb. One is toughness. Yeah, we know the sack totals can't happen, but even with those high sack totals, he didn't throw a lot of interceptions. He does take care of the football. I think you saw a lot of positives for him that he is really can work on and develop from. And like you said, to line up all 17 games, I think that says a lot about him right there. His dedication, his commitment, his preparation to get himself healthy every week to line up, and he wants to go compete. And so, but it's going to be important. They need a quarterback developer and a great play caller to really bring this young man along. Very good player.
And fourth quarter throwing yards. I know, Tom, you've been big on this too. He's done some great stuff in the fourth quarter. He finished fifth in the NFL with 1,100 yards throwing the ball in the fourth quarter with 10 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions, 95 quarterback rating. Joe Burrow was number one with 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns. But, I mean, that was, obviously you're scrambling. You're scrambling to try to get something done, but I still think it's impressive.
Yeah, it is. It is, no doubt about it. So is Joe Burrow's season. But when you look at the numbers of both those guys, the reason, like Jim said, is because they were in a catch-up mode and they had to throw it more than they would have liked to have run it. And both teams are in the same situation right now. I think it's all about what can you do to this offense to make sure that they get off the faster starts.
Yep.
So then they're a little bit more in control of what the quarterback has to do out of necessity in the second half. And you would like to have a couple of running backs that are getting a majority of the carries in the second half because you have a lead. and you're trying to move the ball and move the clock at the same.
He actually wound up throwing the most passes in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
180 of any quarterback. So, yeah, all that makes sense. All that makes sense. Third rookie since 2012 with 1,000-plus completions. Andrew Luck did it in 2012, Carson Wentz in 2016. This is what you do at the end of a season. You look at all this stuff, right? The 16 turnovers, fewest in a single season since at least 1941 for the Bears. Yeah. And protecting the football is always going to be a top order of business. You can't get willy-nilly. You can't be Jameis Winston just throwing the ball around.
Right. You can't get reckless with it. Yeah. And that's the thing about Caleb is, he bought a lot of time behind the line of scrimmage trying to find that open receiver. And then if he found it necessary to throw it out of the bounds to live another play, he did it. He didn't try to put it into harm's way where you gave the opponents another possession or two possessions per game. And so, safety with the football, I think, is preached any quarterback. And I think Jim will tell us that as much as anybody.
Well, I just think for him, you want to be on an offense, and Tom will agree, that can dictate, where you can dictate things. You can dictate, the 4-minute drill where you run out the clock. You can dictate, the line of scrimmage on first and second down, running the ball. You can dictate on third downs, do you know your protections where you can audible or pick it up or throw hot? Can you dictate and really dominate, clock management, time of possession, things at the end of the game? I think we saw Jaden Daniels do that this year. I think we saw it this game in the win over the Packers from Caleb Williams. So there's a lot of things. These are great records for Caleb, but, man, there's a lot of things to get better at. They need to have an offense where they can dictate things rather than, just kind of, be in games but not, ahead like what the Lions did last night. Look at the Lions. They dictated that game to Minnesota is what happened. Minnesota had to settle for field goals early. That's what you want to be able to do, and hopefully the Bears will get there offensively. They need to get the right guy to do it with the quarterback who's very talented and could be great for years to come.
Two Bears with over 100 targets receiving. DJ at 130, which is in line with what the last 4 years. He's averaging like 135 or over the course of his career. Keenan Allen got 118. Rome got 99. So they were just one target shy of three players with 100 targets. Cole with 53, DeAndre Swift with 50. And then the leader, of course, was DJ with 89 catches for his season. So pretty impressive that he got up to that number when, and it was a different kind of year, obviously, for DJ. A lot of behind the line of scrimmage, bubble screens, getting the ball in his hands and having him make plays with his feet after making the catch. And he did a great job of that over the course of his season.
Well, that's the one thing I want to see out of Caleb is I want to see his vertical development. And again, and listen, I've just so impressed with his horizontal passing game, how efficient it is, how quickly he puts the ball into the hands of his playmakers and gives them time to create. But when you have guys like DJ and Rome and Cole and whomever else is going to be here, you have guys that have the ability, the speed, the catchability to stretch the field vertically. So going forward, I want to see numbers, I want to see that 4,000-yard number that it seems like we talk about every year with a Bear quarterback, because I do think that is easily obtainable if they give him the vertical opportunities.
It's going to happen, for sure. It's going to happen. Fifth Bears rookie to win in Green Bay, the first in 25 years. Joins a group of quarterbacks since 1967, also with at least 20 touchdowns and 6 or less interceptions. Among those on that list, Dan Marino back in 83, Dak Prescott in 16, and C.J. Stroud last season with Houston. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll hear from Caleb when we come back. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network. This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by CDW. People who get it. Jeff Joniak, Tom Thayer, Jim Miller. We'll hear from Caleb Williams in just a moment. I got to make a correction because I had some wrong stats in the last segment about. So DJ got to 140 and 98 catches. 121 for Keenan and 70 catches. And Rome did get 101 targets to 54. Cole had 55-47. So I want to get that out there because I was looking at the wrong thing from last week, not this week. So, yeah, so that was the distribution. All right, without further ado, Caleb at the podium today. It was, about 15 minutes or so, 10, 12 minutes. But we're going to chop that down a little bit and get the essence of what he had to say today about his 2025 season coming up and how he looked back at 2024.
Obviously, you learn a little bit more about that, that everybody has to have the same common goal, and it has to be, timing has to be right. So I think those have been the two most important things that I've learned.
You talked in the last week and again last night about wanting to be challenged by whoever the next coach is. And Thomas was up here a little bit earlier saying that sometimes it can be difficult for certain coaches to challenge quarterbacks the way they need to be challenged. What would you express to whoever it is coming in here about how you would like to be challenged and what they need to do to bring the best out of you?
Yeah, I would just say, just challenge me, whether it's, pulling me aside, whether it's, and saying whatever, or, having talks consistently, or maybe not, or maybe having, a list of things that, we want to accomplish, myself first, and then, because that helps the team, and then, from there, help find ways to, set other goals and things like that. So however it may work out, just challenge, and, just to find ways to help better myself, but also, better the team. And so, really excited about that. But, I would say, any way, any shape, form, I don't have an issue with being challenged. I don't have an issue with, speaking truth, between the coach and I, or whoever it may be, and so just whichever way that happens, whichever way it shapes is the way it goes.
Caleb, last night you talked about how just like things that you want to work on in the off season and just for next year, whether it's on the field or off the field. You mentioned like maybe eliminating distractions, having fewer people around you. What did you learn about being the face of a franchise that goes beyond just like being a football player in between the lines?
Playing quarterback in the NFL is fun as can be. It's the adrenaline, the time, effort, and energy that you put into it, and to have the chance to be able to go out there and execute and win games with guys that is doing the same thing, working out, working hard, showing up, and things like that consistently throughout the year, and to have that collective goal, and to be able to go out there and try and win the game. Like I said, have the opportunity to win the game is one of the best feelings that you can have. And so I'd say being able to have those moments, being able to understand what it takes to be in this position, understand that it's a tough job, understand that there's a lot at stake. Being in this position of being a football player and trying to help turn things around. So I think there's been a lot of learning lessons. I think they were needed for myself, but also for this team, and can't wait for what's next.
So you're somebody now though about the magnitude of what's expected from you in this position that you didn't know coming in.
I knew that it was a big task at hand. I knew that were some of the things that I couldn't do from college, some of the things that I could do, a bunch of things that I needed to learn on and off the field, and I'd say there was more lessons this year than I would say that I've had, and one of the things was all of the different things throughout the week that is needed to, take for, me to be able to go out there and play well, for the team to play well. It's something I learned early on, and finding ways to, be better at those things throughout the year and, the years to come.
Caleb, Thomas also said it's unrealistic to expect a quarterback in your position to come in and have all the answers. Yep. Was there more to learn here than you anticipated?
No,
how well were you guided through that, given you were being coached by guys that were fired midseason?
I wouldn't say. What was the first part of that one?
Was there more to learn here at the NFL level than you anticipated?
No, I wouldn't say there was more to learn. I knew that there was going to be a lot that I had to learn in a fast amount of time. to be able to go out there and play and try and play well, play efficient football and try and win games. So I knew there was going to be, a tremendous amount, and, there's still a tremendous amount, and I'm really excited about that. And there's many things that, throughout the season that I didn't know or didn't do well, and, to be able to have the time now, and most of those things is things that I didn't know. And so to be able to have the time now to go back and, look at myself, look at other QBs, the way they've done it, and then also just, sit down and, get in the books and learn, some of the things that, I didn't know throughout the year, some of the things that I really want to know by next year to be able to help the team.
All right, that's a portion of it. For time purposes, we got to cut that a little short. But, a lot there, because there is a lot on the table for a quarterback. So the learning's never going to stop.
Right. So at the beginning of that interview, they used the word challenge. I don't like the word challenge because it's not a coach's job to challenge a quarterback. It's a coach's job to develop a quarterback. The challenge comes from the opponent or the down and distance. And so what do you want to do for a coach to challenge you? That's not what a coach does. Whether it's Dick Stanfield, my offensive line coach, he teaches you fundamentals and techniques, and then the challenge comes when you line up against your opponent. And that's what it is. So I want to see the guy that's going to take everything that Caleb learned from this year, everything that he brought with him from college and high school, and continue that development to his traits and his talents and what he needs to do to best fit the formula of his next offense.
Jim, take us through quarterback from year 1 to year 2, because you did it.
Yeah, and it's not difficult what Tom's asking. I mean, you've got what he did at USC. Now you've got this year what he did for the Bears. What did he do well? What did he not do well at? What parts of the game did he manage well? What parts of the game did he not manage well? From coming out, backed up, 2-minute offense. I can go on and on and on. It's on tape, and whoever they hire to bring him along from year 1 to year 2, I'm going to be able to look at the tape and say, oh, he's struggling against this coverage. Maybe it's, man-free. I don't know whatever coverage he struggles with. But, all right, now this offseason, I'm going to write down a note that I watched Caleb all year, and I think he struggles with man-free coverage. Let's write down this, and we're going to have a little class session about man-free coverage and go through things that can get him better. So all the areas he's weak, you want to strengthen, and then with the new offense, you're going to continue to bring him along. But he's already got a lot of good stuff on tape. Retain all that, and now you're going to try and weed out the bad while incorporating a new offensive system.
All right, Jim, we got to take another break. Final segment coming up next here on Bears Weekly on ESPN Chicago and the Bears Radio Network. Have a new or gently used coat laying around, head to your local Jewel Osco until February 10th to donate one of your new or gently used coats to the 36th annual Chicago Bears Coat Drive and help keep Chicagoans warm this winter. All right, fellas, we're in less than 2 minutes to go, so you got to run the 2-minute offense here. We need quick answers. Real quick, though, 18 different Bears hit the quarterback this year, 13 forced a fumble, 17 at least a half a sack. Who's your defensive player of the year, Tom Thayer?
TJ Edwards.
Jim?
Same.
I'm going. That's what, same. Okay, clean sweep. But Kevin Byard edged him by one solo tackle to lead the team in tackles. Special teams player of the year. Torrey Taylor had a lot of records, 34 punts inside the 20, a Bears rookie record. A lot of good stuff on special teams. Tom, who do you got?
Josh Blackwell.
Jim?
I'll go with Taylor, but he's right about Blackwell. I'll go with Taylor.
I'm going to go with Taylor with a 1A to Amon Agbangbamiga and Daniel Hardy. They shared the special teams tackle lead with 11. Offensive player of the year for the Bears. Tommy.
1A, Caleb. 1B, Coleman Shelton.
Caleb.
Nice. I'm going Caleb as well. I'm going to give a 1A to DJ Moore as well in that bunch. All right. Great stuff. We look forward to what's next. Ryan Poles to speak on Tuesday to give us some clarity on where they're headed in terms of the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. Appreciate you guys. Jim, we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Sounds good, guys.
That's going to do it for us. Special thanks to Big Jim Miller. For Tom Thayer, I'm Jeff Joniak. Thanks to Eric Ostrowski, Dan Barilli, Jordan Tredup, and Justin Pottinger for helping us out tonight. This is the radio home of the Chicago Bears, ESPN Chicago. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for listening. Bleck and Abdallah are next. Have a good night, everybody.